India is a country where culture and tradition meet to protect the environment and some sort of traditions as well.
Burning fires is also a reason for this terrible pollution that we have in Delhi. And on the other side, educated people are enjoying by burning this kind of a bonfires.
How important is environmental responsibility as it is an increasing issue?
As a human race, spoken so much about the progress that we have made, I think somewhere arrogance has crept into us.
So that is absolutely beautiful, and I'm sure we'll feel the same way 20 years down the line.
I hope you do.
Thank you, sir. It is a matter of great honor to welcome our distinguished guest, Mr. Dikshu Kukreja. Sir, we are truly honored to have you with us today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Before we begin, we would also like to share that our guest is an alumnus of Delhi Public School, Mathura Road. Coming back to the place where his journey first began must be truly special.
Of course, it certainly is. But thank you for having me on this podcast. And it's such a pleasure to be with both of you. And importantly, back in the school where I spent 13 long years, right from nursery all the way to grade 12. It just brings back so many memories when I'm sitting here.
Sir, as a fellow dipsite, what changes have you noticed when you were roaming through these corridors today?
Well, like I said, some things feel exactly the same, but of course, the physical appearance has changed of the interiors of these spaces. And I see lots of activities which, show that the school is in a state of transformation. So that aspect is quite evident. But other than that, I would say, at least from the lenses that I look at, I see it just the way I used to see it and experience it so many years ago.
So that is absolutely beautiful, and I'm sure we'll feel the same way 20 years down the line.
I hope you do.
So from a diplomatic perspective, how important is environmental responsibility as it is an increasing issue in today's world?
Look, that's a very good question. We all today, at least whether we care for our environment or not, but we are definitely facing the consequences of it. And the way we have been, I believe that, while we have, as a human race, spoken so much about the progress that we have made, I think somewhere arrogance has crept into us. So we have forgotten to respect the environment around us, particularly in the 20th century. The advancements have been really, a lot of times when you look back now, at the cost of the environment, diverting rivers by building dams over them, flattening mountains, and what have you. So I think as a diplomat, one can play a very important role because let's face it, environment knows no diplomatic or political boundaries. With the air we breathe or the river that runs from one country through another, it transcends political boundaries. So as a diplomat, it becomes very important that we can use the tool of diplomacy rather than the aggressive tool of war and aggression. We can use diplomacy to convince others that we share a common future and therefore we share a common concern towards our environment.
Absolutely, sir. So, while we're on the topic of diplomatic perspectives, what role do embassies and diplomats play in promoting climate awarenesses and sustainable practices?
So I think embassies and consulates play quite an important role because they can be the bridge of learning between their own country that they are representing and the nation in which the embassy or consulate is. There are so many, I mean, world over, the human mind, human race comes up with inventions, and some of these inventions, like I said, can be for the better of entire humanity. So embassies can play an important role that we are able to share that knowledge. For example, when I represent Albania, Albania has, it's a small country, but it has a great sense of responsibility towards the environment. So like India, while it's a developing nation, but it is not developing at the cost of the environment. So a lot of renewable energy, hydropower, wind power, and solar energy is being used in Albania in a very big way. So that's a great learning, because even India has taken on such a great responsibility. As you must be aware, India co-founded the International Solar Alliance, yes, where so many countries are members now. So there's a lot of shared knowledge that can happen, and embassies and consulates can play a big role in that.
Yeah. Yes, sir, definitely. I feel we should be all aware of this and we should be really concerned towards our environment.
Absolutely. I don't think now we have a choice.
Definitely.
Years back, we could have thought of taking different measures. And I remember when I was in school, there used to be conversations about the earth getting warmer and what effect climate change will happen. But, people usually shrugged their shoulders and thought, oh, what can we do about it? Or how does it really matter? That was generally, I think, the perception of people. But today, when we are facing the consequences of that, I think it's a lot now onto everybody's responsibility, but also you young people who are going to be now soon entering your higher institution learning, and then your careers, that it becomes imperative. And I don't think age is ever a detriment to when one can play a role. Look at Greta Thunberg, what kind of a role she started playing. So I think, and through your podcast and you young minds sitting here, I hope one can take that message that age is never holding us back in the passion and concern and sense of responsibility that we must have towards our environment.
I feel people are now having a perception that it's just the responsibility of a government,
Yes.
or an organization.
Right.
They don't take it as a shared responsibility. I feel like they need to take it more as a shared responsibility now towards the environment, towards its protection.
No, absolutely. I mean, I can share this with you. Last evening, I was out for dinner at some friend's place, and I felt disappointed because there they had this big roaring bonfire going on. Now, on the one side, we are saying that, burning fires is also a reason for this terrible pollution that we have in Delhi. And on the other side, educated people are enjoying by burning this kind of a bonfire. So I think you are absolutely right. It's not, we have to go beyond that mindset, which is a very myopic, and I would even call it irresponsible mindset, that what, this is somebody else's problem to solve.
Yeah.
And that cannot happen. Each one of us has to figure out in our own way that what step are we taking. Even if it is that plastic bottle that we are throwing, are we putting it, so many places you go, you see those three
Yes, sir.
different cans. But how many people actually pay attention to seeing where they need to throw which trash? So each one of us has.
Definitely, sir, definitely. So, as an architect and urban planner, how do you see cities balancing development with environmental protection? Because we feel that we can get the best insight from you on this.
That's a very good question again. I think cities, my perception and approach to this is that, of course, we are not going to be in a development freeze. That is not a solution to any place. We need to develop. That is what human beings are all about, our zest for development and progress. But also comes this knowledge. So how we use this knowledge to develop makes all the difference. Which means that in a city, yes, you can make buildings taller, because today we have more technology and we have more access, greater access to materials, etc., etc. But are we doing that with a sense of responsibility that if I have to build a certain volume, and that volume was to be covered, let's say, in two buildings of 10 floors each, and we decide let's make a 20-story building rather than two buildings, that means I've opened up the ground more. What am I going to do with that ground? Is it going to be put to better use? Is it going to be put towards a better environment, more greening, water recycling, etc., etc.? Or is it going to be just wasted? So these small gestures in a development of a city can also make a difference. Like a city like Delhi, Mumbai, and many other Indian cities are right now going through redevelopment projects. You must have noticed even in places like Delhi, you used to have these two-story bungalows, and they are being demolished and multi-story buildings are coming. So if you're building more, how are you making sure that the city is still a better place? Are you going to cause more traffic congestion? Are you going to cause more environmental degradation? Or are you going to create an upheaval in that environment in a positive manner? Makes all the difference.
So that is definitely something to ponder about and a really great perspective, I must say. I feel that, people should be aware of their actions. It has consequences and it can affect the well being of the environment.
Yes, very much so. So we all need to, that is what education is all about. Education is not just learning formulas
So,
and just boasting about, knowing too much about, let's say, different subjects, but it is about being able to introspect and apply your mind in a sensible manner, that whatever action he or she is taking, what are going to be its immediate consequences and what are going to be its long-term consequences.
so definitely, definitely. So, as we all know, culture is a big part of all of our lives, especially in India. So, what role do you think culture plays in shaping people's attitude towards nature and its conservation?
I think culture is the basic DNA of a human being. Um, of course, some would argue that even certain animal species display a lot of cultural aspects or cultural values. But let's not deny the fact that human beings, being perhaps the more evolved species on this planet, have a certain knowledge and certain culture and legacy that passes on from one generation to another. So I think culture plays a very important role in creating that thread of civilization. Yep. Where we are progressing in a harmonious, in a continuous manner and progressing for the better.
Yes, sir, definitely. And I feel that India is a country where culture and tradition need to protect the environment in some sort of traditions as well.
Yes, but I would also say that India's rich culture and traditions, and added to it the layer of diversity. When you travel from one part of the country to another, it's amazing which other country in the world can boast of this kind of diversity that India has. So when I used to be in the US, when I was studying at Harvard and spending time there working, and many people would say, tell us about India. What is India like? Etc. So I would sometimes even make this parallel. I would say that, in many ways, at least to the European students, I would say it's like a mini Europe in itself. This one country is like a Europe. And that's not because we have a massive population, but it's the diversity. Just like in Europe, you move from one country to another, and you will come up with the people change in terms of their language, culture, customs, traditions, etc. In India, one state to another.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Even within one state, there is so much.
That's so true.
So it's an amazing, amazing country. And yet, look at it, what a harmonious country we are in. Since we gained our independence more than 7 decades ago, have we had any kind of terrible domestic consequences? Never. We all
Not at all.
to live so happily. So I feel that people around the world need to look at India and learn a lot from us.
Yeah, definitely. They truly do. So, apart from dialogue and negotiation, how do countries like Albania and India cooperate on environmental and come on the same page for sustainability?
So, both India and Albania share lots of common things, and those common aspects have been that they have a respect for their culture, traditions, and democratic values today. So, from that point of view, it becomes a sense of common responsibility because it today, whenever I visit Albania, I see so many similarities. It reminds me of back home because the people in both the countries today have this desire to progress, have a desire to work hard only to be able to be successful. These are the values we've been taught. We are not here the privileged lot who believe that, everything is just given to us. So we are not these aggressive consumerists like certain societies are. So in that sense, there are many, many common aspects between Albanian values and Indian values. And one of them also happens to be about the concern for the environment. And therefore, like I said earlier, the learnings that can transcend and the role that uh, 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 my consulate can play in sharing knowledge, in sharing those learnings, sharing those experiences is a big thing which is going on even as we speak to.
Not just India and Albania, I feel all countries are facing environmental problems and they should come on the same page and cooperate for the better being of the world.
No, absolutely. This is not a one country finding the solution.
Absolutely.
It's the world coming together that needs to start thinking about it. And the world needs to move beyond wars and aggressions to actually putting our great minds together to first address this issue, which has now become more serious than ever before in human civilization, that what are we doing with our planet? And it's not now left to mere words. We are all seeing it every day. We are all reading about it in the media. We are seeing how, cyclones, storms, how mountains have, which used to be having plentiful snow, are now not having any snowfall at all, and the ocean water rising gradually. The islands are becoming a source of, not a source, but a point of threat for the civilization that is there. So innumerable aspects that are affecting us and our environment need to be very quickly taken care of.
Absolutely. So I completely agree on this notion. So, with the advancement of technology and inclusion of artificial intelligence in this world, how does it really help to protect environment and get through those challenges?
So, like I said earlier, we should be utilizing our ability as a human civilization where we are making this progress. Earlier, few decades back, computers changed our lives. Today, we are at the cusp of AI turning to be a life changer. Which way it goes is something we need to watch and also monitor carefully and handle responsibly. So, whether AI becomes a destructive tool or it becomes a tool for our own progress is in our hands. And I think there is tremendous opportunity that AI has and also the power to transform. So now one of those can be how it's going to help us in solving our issues with environment. And every time we invent something or create something or bring in a new technology in this world, it is also then our responsibility to use it in a positive manner. So that's something I think governments around the world and different organizations need to think about it and pledge to society that they will use this more for our progress rather than a destructive.
Yes,
Absolutely. So I strongly agree with you because everything has its pros and cons. So it just depends on the way we use it.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
So now I have a question here. May I ask you?
Definitely, for sure.
Since you are the young generation who's going to be soon graduating from school in a year or two and will be the future destiny of our country and the world, I can see that you both already seem to have a lot of passion and concern towards the environment. But tell me, has a thought ever come to your mind that as an individual, what you can possibly do to make our environment better?
So definitely, we should start with small steps. Environment protection starts from our homes, and we should be more aware about it instead of being ignorant to our current situation.
So true, so true. You're right. First, the awareness comes, then
The actions.
I agree with you.
The small steps we take can shape and change our world.
Absolutely. Every small step.
Every small step makes a change.
So true. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah. So, as we're talking about youth and youth being the future, what qualities do you think that young leaders should develop for a green future?
You know, I would say for any future, green or blue, the quality that any young leader must have is empathy. We must remember that one aspect in a human being is that we need to be caring. We need to be concerned. We cannot become arrogant. I think arrogance has been, if we read in history, arrogance has been the cause of downfall of any uh, let's say government, any power, any king, any civilization. So it's important to have a quality of empathy.
Yeah.
And with that, that not only will we be able to make or take decisions as a young leader for our people, but those will also obviously reach the realm of environment.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, definitely.
Definitely so.
So, while we're on this topic, I would also like to ask what one advice would you give to students who wish to work in environmental fields and global service fields?
I think that's a very good point. First of all, I think my first point to those students would be that you are choosing a very wise profession, because this is not something which is just, there for the day or for a short period. If you enter the field of environment, it is going to be something which will not just be a very positive contribution you're making to society, but even your own personal growth as a professional seems to be having a bright future if you are in any if, field or associated with environmental awareness, environmental actions. So there is because this is now going to be something that we cannot be solved in a day, and it's going to be something that is going to be more and more a focus of people. Whether it's going to be governments, or it's going to be in the private sector, or it's going to be of consumer society driven societies, is going to be aspect that nobody can afford to ignore. So even as a profession, I would say you have a bright future if you are in a field.
Yeah, definitely.
So, if there is any one environmental message that you would like every student to remember, then what would it be?
I would say just the way for each one of us, equally, irrespective of which country we belong to or which religion we belong to, or this air is the same, what water we drink is the same. So nature and environment treats us equally. The same way we need to treat it with the utmost respect. It is not one of those things that has been handed down to us to be destroyed. It is each and every person's responsibility that we leave behind for the next generation a better environment, or at least an as good environment, certainly not a more depleted environment.
Yes, so definitely. And we should really think about the future generations and how it would impact them if we deteriorate the environment even more.
Yes, but this is words that I used to hear when I was sitting in that chair of yours, and I was a student here in DPS. But you know what? Times have changed. Today, I can even say it is good for us to become selfish and be concerned for our own selves. When I was your age, the air quality and other problems of environment were not there. They were beginning to happen or forecasted to happen. Today we are sitting in the midst of.
We are living.
So even if we are not concerned about the next generation, for our own health, selfishly we need to wake up, and we don't need to just sit there and complain about it. And like you rightfully said, expect only the governments to do that thing. Each one of us needs to wake up to this issue.
Definitely so.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for sharing your insights and experiences today. What did you feel about this podcast and how do you think it would help us students?
Well, I loved sharing my thoughts with you too. I enjoyed the podcast very much, including the fact that you have this dedicated podcast room in the school. When you asked me about the changes earlier between the school when I was here and now, certainly we didn't have things like podcasts and podcast rooms. So I've really enjoyed this. And I think it's a great medium that you have very responsibly engaged with in some terms of a media tool that is there for communication with the rest of the world. It's fantastic. You must carry on, and I wish you the best.
Thank
I urge you to be here in DPS school. Like I said, it's brought back flood of memories, and I wish the school, and I wish the students, and I wish all the students from the entire young generation a great, bright future.
Thank you so much, sir. So your thoughts on sustainability and diplomacy, urban planning and youth leadership have really helped us to understand that global responsibility begins with conscious choices instead of blind hope.
I must sign off by complimenting you both. I'm so happy to interact with you, and I am very impressed with your intelligence, your presence of mind, and your thoughtfulness towards the subject that we've discussed.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Today's conversation regarding environmental protection again informs us that it is not just the government's responsibility, but it is a shared responsibility, and young people play a great role in that. And as Mohit Agadi said, and I quote, environment is not a property to destroy, it is everyone's responsibility to protect. I unquote.
Thank you so much. And remember, service before self.